from Colombian prostitutes. But when it comes to Americans behaving badly while serving our country abroad, I think there's another story that needs to be talked about and uncovered. And today, we're going to do it right here. In a new report by the Pentagon, last year, 3,192 military sexual assaults were reported, an increase of 1% from the previous year. But the Defense Department said in 2010 that only 14% of sexual assaults in the military were reported, and that the real estimate is closer to 19,000 assaults. That's 19,000 women and men who signed up to defend us against our enemies, but instead have found the enemy is the person standing right beside them. Sexual assault in the U.S. military is so pervasive that addressing it has become a top priority for Defense Leon Panetta, who announced this week changes to the way the military deals with sexual assault within its ranks.
Sexual assault has no place in the military. It is a violation of everything that the U.S. military stands for. We believe that we've developed a set of initiatives that fundamentally change the way the department deals with this problem.
Much like civilian sexual assault, the victimization of the survivors in the military is twofold. First, the initial attack, and second, enduring the legal process, or lack thereof, to pursue and punish perpetrators. Last year, 68% of actionable sexual assault reports were not prosecuted by military courts. And the Pentagon has demonstrated its commitment to justice for survivors of sexual assault, but do the measures go far enough? Joining me from San Francisco, a member of Congress who has taken the lead on this issue, Democratic Congresswoman Speier. And here at the table is Ariana Klay, a former Marine who's a survivor of military sexual assault and is part of a class action lawsuit against the military, and attorney Raul Reyes, a contributor for NBCLatino.com. Thank you all for being here this morning. Congresswoman, I want to start with you because, you know, obviously Leon Panetta was out this week talking about doing more. Can you first give me a sense of the scope of sexual assault in the military, and then tell me whether or not you think the changes that Mr. Panetta is suggesting go far enough?
Well, the scope of it is overwhelming. The fact that there are 19,000 cases a year by DOD's own estimate, and only 13 or 14% report, suggests that people don't have confidence that if they report a sexual assault that it will be handled appropriately in the military. And as Ariana and others will tell you, more often than not, they get marginalized, they are identified as having personality disorders, and then they are involuntarily honorably discharged from the military. So we've got to take this issue much more seriously. To Secretary Panetta, I do believe he wants to do the right thing. The recommendations that he has made this week, frankly, don't go far enough. Creating a special victims unit already exists within the Army, has since 2009, and we haven't seen an increase in cases as a result of that. Creating a sexual assault database is good. That was something that was recommended in 2009 by the National Defense Authorization Act. And finally, having it go up the chain of command one more office is okay, but I believe that we really need to take it out of the chain of command if we're really going to have cases treated appropriately.
So Ariana, the Congresswoman brings up the issue of the chain of command here, and that seems to me to be a fundamental aspect of what's happening that is a challenge. So I'm going to come back to the Congresswoman in a moment, but I would like to pause, and I'm sorry, I'm shaking a little bit. I am a survivor of sexual assault, and so my anger as I read your story was palpable, and the more now that I'm sitting here with you, the angrier I get as I think about how your circumstances were handled by our military. So just in the briefest way, if you can tell me a bit about what your circumstances were, and also how the chain of command meant that you did not get justice.
Right. So in my case, there was a senior officer at my command and his civilian friend who had came to my house uninvited at 7 o'clock in the morning and threatened me with death and performed acts that were designed to humiliate me. He felt that he was in a position that he was protected from the command. He had said if I reported it, he would humiliate me and discredit me, and that's exactly what he did and what the command allowed him to do. the commander can be the judge of his own cause. And I think that Panetta's new proposals will just treat the symptoms, not the disease. In my case, it did go to a colonel, and in fact, 2 3-star generals signed off on this. So the higher you go in the military, the more a colonel or a commander has to lose. So I think Congresswoman Speier is right. They have to take it completely out of the chain of command.
The idea that that in the military, sexual assault survivors are facing a justice system which is within that chain of command. Congresswoman, can you tell me how the legislation that you're proposing will address this issue in a different way than what the DOD is currently suggesting?
Well, in my legislation, it takes it out of the chain of command. So a victim would report it to a special office that would be staffed with experts, both in terms of prosecution and investigation, and they will do that evaluation, and then whatever they recommend will stand. It won't be a decision made by the commander. What we have seen, really, is the number of court-martials that have been initiated by commanders have decreased in the last SAPRO report that you just referenced. The number of convictions have decreased. None of this is going to change unless we see prosecutions go up and convictions go up. In many respects, it's stacked against the victim because their sexual conduct, their previous sexual conduct, is admissible in a hearing. The fact that the military moral character of the assailant is reason for defense to bring that up to mitigate the crime. Those would not stand the test in a criminal justice system in the civilian world.
Right. So in a civilian court, and I think part of what I was appalled at is sort of a couple that the language that survivors are frequently called basically insane, that they are asked to go in for psychiatric testing when they report, but also that the issue becomes not rape but adultery, and whether or not there's been adultery and then also obscene language, right? Rather than issues of the violation of a human being, and particularly of a fellow soldier. I know that you are now involved in a class action suit, and we as at the MHP show reached out to the Department of Defense, and the Pentagon said that they will not give us a statement. But tell me about this class action suit. What is it that you and the other women that are part of the suit are hoping to do? The class action suit is an attempt to effect change. The reprisal that often ensues after a sexual assault is often far more traumatizing than the actual incident. The commander contractually owns you. The military is your entire world, and for that world to crush you is in a time when you've been degraded beyond human comprehension, and what you really need is support, is never going to happen if they keep it within the chain of command. And our lawsuit, we hope that, unlike the last lawsuit, that they actually take it to courts and let them decide instead of they had previously dismissed the lawsuit citing rape as incident to military service. And our hopes is that they allow it to go to civilian courts and let the civilian jury or judge make a decision on whether they're handling sexual assault. Earl, I wanted to bring you in here just on the politics of this. Like, this idea of military matters in civilian courts is very difficult for any president, right, to begin, or any Department of Defense to begin to do. So how do we create the pressure to make this possible?
Well, I think it does need to go to a civilian court because military culture is a closed culture. Military culture rewards loyalty. So anyone who is coming forward speaking out about abuse or assault already has a huge threshold of just credibility, which is unfair. And when we consider these alarming statistics, you have to remember that assaults in the military are grossly underreported. So, I mean, there are many people who are too frightened or afraid or just, bury it. So the actual incidence is far higher. And I think what the military is resisting right now, but what they absolutely need, if the cases are not going to be tried in civilian courts, is to have a civilian component throughout the whole process. Because it's, it's totally unacceptable. I think, listening to the Congresswoman, I remember in 2008, Congresswoman Jane Harman said that a woman who signs up to serve in the military is more more likely to suffer sexual abuse by the hands of a fellow soldier than she is to be killed or injured by enemy fire. And that is totally unacceptable. Totally, you know, it's tragedy. And so I think we have to force that issue into civilian courts, because right now the military